Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Good 5 Cent Cigar Newscast. I'm Morganne Judd. Thank you so much for joining us. This week, we look into the top stories from Journalism 330. And of course, Charlie Adams will have all things Rhody athletics covered in this week's Rhody Sports Corner. For our top story, there has been an ongoing war between the United States and Iran. Paige Handley has the details on what you need to know.
I am here at the University of Rhode Island today, and I got to talk to professors and students about the ongoing war and how they feel about it. On February 28th of 2026, President Donald Trump bombed Iran.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
The war has been a hot topic at URI, and students have voiced their opinions.
I think it's really silly to me when people are like, it's just too stressful, or like, I don't know, I'm just too young right now, like I just don't care about that, it doesn't make me angry, but it upsets me.
Experts say this is not something that we can excuse.
It can't just be like, oh, he's just Trump being Trump. Well, Trump being Trump that's probably the most dangerous assumption that you can make, and students do it all the time.
One of the biggest concerns that college students have is the possibility of being drafted.
Just because we're the age of exactly when they want to draft you. So if it did escalate and I got drafted, I would not want to be going out in that war. It's not a war I want to fight.
It raises the question of potential draftees' college future.
Obviously, if there's a draft, the question of will you be able to delay being drafted until you finish your degree? Will you be drafted once you finish your degree? Would obviously be pretty important for men.
The consequences of this war is starting to show.
Huge implications for the economy, for spending. For every $1 million we spend on a missile, we're not spending that on something else.
The possibility of the war ending anytime soon is uncertain.
The hardest truth about the war right now is that we don't have any viable outs. Iran now controls how this war will end.
With everything going on between the United States and Iran, it's very important for students to be staying informed about this very important topic. Reporting live from Kingston, Rhode Island, I'm Paige Handley.
Thanks, Paige. Faculty Senate shared their agenda plans for the next school year. Here's Stephen Russo with the plans.
Faculty Senate elections just wrapped up, so I talked to President-elect Evan Pricer to find out a little bit more about his campaign trail and what he has on the agenda for next academic year.
I ran on the fact that being mad at administration and confronting them about issues isn't all that useful. So we need to work with them. The big problem we have right now is we have Faculty Senate, but there's no one whose job it is to communicate what we do to the faculty members. And so lots of faculty members don't know about things and they get blindsided. We have to do a better job of that communication. We're putting together a series of basically college secretaries in each of the colleges that's responsible for that job of communicating.
On top of better communication and working with administration, Pricer also has a couple of other things that he'd like to see changed at the university. Here's what he had to say.
Little things that are wrong at the university that the Faculty Senate control through our stewardship of the university manual. And we need to fix those things. Upcoming in fall 26, any course you take, you can get a second grade option. If you get a C- or below, you can take it again, and your better grade will be counted. The university is large and complex, and colleges run very differently from each other, and understanding how different colleges work and interact with their faculty, that's a major issue. Get people to understand this really is something that affects me, and if I join it, if I'm part of this, I can make change. I don't have to sit there waiting for someone else, or even worse, just complaining.
I'm Stephen Russo. Back to you.
Thanks, Stephen. There has been an update to housing ordinance in the town of Narragansett. Marlou Marsden reports on this new change and how it may affect Narragansett. Here's Marlou.
Narragansett Town Council has approved increasing the number of student renters allowed in a home from 3 to 5, bringing the town in line with state law.
On March 2nd, the Narragansett Town Council unanimously passed a new ordinance allowing up to 5 college students to live in a single dwelling, as long as there is no more than 1 student per legal bedroom. The change aligns with a state law passed in July of 2024, which limits occupancy based on bedrooms rather than student status. Town council members say the goal is simple: treat students the same as any other unrelated group of renters.
There's a lot of people who just associate students between the ages of 18 to 23, 25. But the reality is there's single parents who are raising kids, going to Rhode Island College in the evening, taking online courses through the University of Arizona, who get a MBA online to support their growing business in town. It's not easy to really decipher the difference between one student or another.
But not everyone is on board. Some residents say increasing the number of student renters could worsen ongoing concerns about water usage and sewer capacity in the town. Others argue that students already make up nearly half of Narragansett's population, and that expanding occupancy could make housing even less affordable for year-round residents.
The idea of college students living around has a stigma about it, but going to URI and actually living in the community, I feel like that the ordinance allows the community to grow. There's a lot of kids that try to get involved in the community and do community service and try to enjoy the beach and all the public works. So, I think increasing the amount of people and amount of people per house really just adds to the community.
Despite concerns, the ordinance took effect immediately after passing, repealing any conflicting local rules. As Narragansett adjusts to this new ordinance, the debate continues over how to balance student housing with the concerns of year-round residents. Reporting in Narragansett for Ocean State News, I'm Marlou Marsden.
Thanks, Mary Lou. Looking ahead, here's what's going on next week at URI. Shrek Fest is taking place on the Quad this Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Enjoy watching the wee Shrek as well as other sweet treats with friends. The URI Dance Company will be hosting their annual Spring Showcase this Saturday at 1 p.m. in Edwards Auditorium. Admission for students is $3. And finally, the Spring Fest Block Party will take place on Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the Quad. Celebrate the end of the semester with friends. To learn more about upcoming events on campus, visit URI Involved at uriinvolved.uri.edu. With that, I'll hand it off to Charlie Adams with this week's Rhody Sports Corner.
Thanks, Morganne. Welcome back to the Rhody Sports Corner, your place for all the latest updates across URI athletics. I'm Charlie Adams. Football's spring practice season is underway, with plenty of familiar faces returning as the Rams look to win their conference for a third consecutive season for the first time in program history. Led by head coach Jim Fleming, Rhody has seen strong success in both retention and recruitment through the transfer portal. Here's Gerard Villemenay with the story.
The 2026 football season will be soon upon us here at the University of Rhode Island, and for the Rhode Island Rams, they'll look a whole lot different this season after making plays in the transfer portal. Things will indeed look different for Rhody this upcoming season as the team welcomed 23 players to the roster, with 15 of them transferring to Rhode Island. While the team gathered 11 offensive and 4 defensive transfer players, Rhode Island head coach Jim Fleming highlighted the team's process of getting players to come to URI.
Yeah, I think our current players, as it always is, your best selling point for a program is the kids that are in the program. They're the ones that can give the true talk to the recruits that come in. The transfers we've had have been attracted to the winning ways that we've shown over the last couple of years.
While also gaining players, URI lost 34 players due to them either graduating or entering the portal. And with new players on the roster, the team quickly built chemistry with each other.
It's a standard that we have. We understand that when we recruit, we want guys that fit our standard, fit what we have, our motto on the defense and all that. So understanding that it all starts in the recruiting process before they even commit. Vetting those guys, making sure that they're the right fit for our program, and they know what it is when they come in and they buy into the culture.
We had all winter camp. We figured out who was coming in. So by the time we came back in the end of January, we just figured out the guys, what they're good at, what they like to do, and now it's just coming out here trying to execute and put them in the right spots.
Another highlight for the Rams this offseason was the decision by Buchanan and fourth-year quarterback Devin Farrell choosing to stay with Rhode Island.
Me and Devin are just loyal guys in the end. Obviously, Devin likes being over here on the East Coast. I don't know why. He's from down in Georgia, but he was like, nah, this is something I want to build. And I was like, I'm with you.
URI will look to begin putting the pieces together, beginning with their spring exhibition game on April 25th. Reporting from the University of Rhode Island, I'm Gerard Villemenay with the Rhody Sports Corner. Back to you.
Thanks, Gerard. Baseball was back in action at Bill Beck Field on Friday to open its weekend series against LaSalle University. The Rams took 12 innings, but eventually brought home their 6th straight win in a 7-6 victory. Owen Desharnais has the story from the Beck.
On Friday, the University of Rhode Island Rams opened a weekend series against the LaSalle University Explorers in a game that saw 12 innings of action and a walk-off wild pitch.
The Explorers were the first to discover the scoreboard when fourth-year Ruben Livingston homered to left field. The Rams would respond when third-year Ryan Henschel singled to center to tie the game at 1 apiece. 2 innings later, Henschel would bring in another 2 on a double down the left field line. 1 batter later, third-year Scott Penny would drive in another 2 runs to give the Rams a 5-1 lead. In the top of the 5th, the Explorers would score 3 runs, which were capped off by this 2-run bomb from 5th-year Chase Swain, cutting the Rams' lead to just 1. 1 inning later, the Explorers would take the lead on this RBI single from second-year Jaden Novak, bringing the score to 6-5 in favor of the Explorers. In the bottom of the 9th, still trailing by 1, fourth-year Jack Hopko would send a solo shot out to right center to tie the game at 6 and force extra innings. In extras, the Rams trusted second-year Manny Santos to shut down the Explorers, and he did, throwing 3 innings, allowing just 1 hit and striking out 7.
And once he started throwing the ball well, you could just see his confidence growing and growing and growing because his stuff is nasty. And when he's in the zone, he's dominant.
In the bottom of the 12th, with the bases loaded and nobody out, 5th-year Josh Beck had a pitcher's worst nightmare come true when he threw a wild pitch which walked it off for the Rams with a final score of 7-6.
Oh my gosh, that might be the first one actually. But, this year we've had a lot of walk-off homers, but that's probably the first time I've seen a walk-off wild pitch. That was sick. That was awesome.
For the Rhody Sports Corner, I'm Owen Desharnais. Back to you.
Thanks, Owen. As for some other scores and results around campus this week. After Friday's extra innings win, baseball finished the series against LaSalle with a 4-3 loss on Saturday before winning the rubber match 9-6 on Sunday. The Rams returned to action for 2 midweek games, taking down Bryant 10-9 on Tuesday before hosting Merrimack on Wednesday. Softball had a similar busy slate, being swept by Loyola Chicago over the weekend with a 4-0 loss and a 5-3 loss in Saturday's doubleheader before falling 7-2 on Sunday. The team wrapped up its week with 2 doubleheaders, taking both games over New Haven on Tuesday with a 4-3 win followed by a 3-0 victory before playing a doubleheader against Sacred Heart on Wednesday at 2 and 4 p.m. in Worcester, Mass. Men's track and field competed at the Friar Invitational on Friday, as Antonio Capalbo placed second in the Mile Invitational with a time of 4:03.52. The team was also in action on Friday at the Wilton Wright Invitational, as Arnaud Sio placed third in the 110-meter hurdles in 14.63 seconds and second in the 400-meter hurdles at 54.15 seconds. Women's track and field was also represented at both invitationals on Friday, with the Rams taking home the top 3 spots in the 400-meter at the Friar Invitational. Alyssa Yankee won the discus and hammer throw at the Wilton Wright Invitational, also placing third in the shot put. Women's tennis took to its home outdoor courts for the first time this season in a pair of matches, celebrating Senior Day in a 6-1 win over Bryant on Thursday before blowing a 3-0 lead in a 4-3 loss to George Washington on Saturday. Women's rowing returned to Ridgefield, New Jersey for the second straight Saturday, placing third of 3 teams in all 4 races against Northeastern and Columbia University. Women's lacrosse wraps up our results this week with a 14-11 loss to VCU on Saturday. Abby LePage was the only one to correctly predict Rory McIlroy to repeat as Masters champ in last week's edition of Sparking Up. This week, the Cigar Sports staff and contributors made their picks for WrestleMania 42, with no one fully agreeing on the results of any match. Now let's take a look at what's coming up next week on campus in sports. Softball will host in-state rival Providence College on Wednesday for a 3:30 p.m. first pitch from the URI softball complex. To keep up with the biggest sports stories around campus on the go, tune in to Cigar Sports Talk every Tuesday on Spotify. This week we covered Colleen Mullen's introductory press conference, tennis splitting its matches, and more. That's all for this week's edition of the Rhody Sports Corner. To stay updated with all things URI athletics, follow us on Instagram and X @_cigarsports. Back to you, Morganne.
Thanks, Charlie. That's all we have for you this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow us on Instagram @Rhody Cigar and pick up our print paper anywhere on campus to stay up to date with all your Rhody news. You can also find us online at rhodycigar.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Morganne Judd. This is the Good 5 Cent Cigar Newscast, and as always, have a great week, Rhody.